The previous basket is under review.
Welcome into another episode of Weekend Under Review, brought to you by Basket Under Review. That is Matthew Winick. I am Brian Rauf, here to talk about the week that was and look ahead to the weekend ahead. The week that was during exhibition season, mostly one game. We have some takeaways from Duke's exhibition victory over UCF. We'll get into that, but a loaded slate this week. And if you are into exhibition hoops at all, or just craving college basketball the way that we are, this weekend's going to be a lot of fun. You have some college football to watch. Your Blue Jays, is the World Series start this weekend, or is that next week?
That's Friday night tonight. When this is going to be live. Yeah.
Okay. So you have some baseball to watch, you have some college football to watch, you have some NFL to watch. We're going to be watching college hoops. There's plenty of good college hoops action to watch. If you are a big college hoops fan who enjoys this show and enjoys exhibition matchups, make sure you subscribe to the Trilly Donovan Discord. It supports everything we do at Basket Under Review, supports this show, supports the other awesome shows on our network. You have the Basket Under Review podcast, Stats with Will and Jim, Scout Team with Eric Fawcett and Kevin Sweeney, and all the premium content you get at basketunderreview.com. You also have access to the Discord, where Trilly Donovan gives his insights and is just the most awesome collection of college basketball sickos there are out there. Very active Discord. Cannot recommend it enough. $10 a month. More than your value there. I'm subscribing to the Trilly Donovan Discord, so make sure you do that. Well, let's get to this Duke game. Let's get to this Duke UCF game. Duke won 96-71. Not a huge surprise. The Blue Devils won. I was fortunate enough to be in the building for the Cam Boozer show that this was. The Blue Devils, to me, are an interesting team this year. And we didn't get a full picture for the Blue Devils, given Malik Brown did not play, given Dame Sarr didn't play. And UCF exploited some of that on the wing, particularly in the first half. UCF led for a little bit, and there was some nervous energy in the arena. But I'm curious, you watched a good portion of this game before it got out of hand in the second half. So I'm curious from your perspective, what did you see from the Blue Devils in this game?
I know you knew this was coming, but I'm going to start with a very quick, just self-promotion. I said they're going to win by 24. They won by 25. Should have picked a round number. If I just said 25, I would have come on here and said I completely got the spread right. But you know what? Neither here nor there. I just know I know it all. Whatever. Listen, Duke showed a lot in terms of they are going to be a big team. They're going to be a physical team. Cameron Boozer's a superstar, especially in the paint and in the high post area where there's nobody that can stop him, at least nobody on UCF that can stop him. And I know we'll talk about UCF quickly afterwards, but when it comes to Duke, I obviously there's lots to be optimistic about. I was pessimistic about some things. I wasn't a big fan of Cam Boozer's passing. Obviously, that's nitpicking someone who had, over 30 points in his college debut, even though it didn't count. I didn't like the fit with Cameron Boozer and Pat Gongwa. That's going to have to take a little bit of time. Neither are going to be taking a lot of perimeter jumpers. So just making sure that those two fit are big. Obviously, Caleb Foster was effective as a passer and a rebounder, but he wasn't even looking to score. So when you have two interior presences and a point guard who's not really looking to score, now there's a lot of pressure on the wings. And obviously Dame Sarr didn't play, but now you really need Homenya and Isaiah Evans to be on from deep. And they were combined 4 of 15. So against, no offense to UCF, better competition. I think there are worlds where this offensive fit is a bit of a struggle. Outside of that, there's a lot to like about this squad.
Yeah, some takeaways I noted. Pat and Gongba, the breakout's not coming. I feel pretty confident in saying that the breakout, the positives he showed at the end of last year, some of that's still there, but he looked slow and he looked a little lost, which you would not expect from a guy who played some significant minutes last year returning. I don't know how much of him and Cam Boozer you're going to see on the court together. Again, Malik Brown was hurt, so there were some limitations to the front court rotation there, but the foot speed between the two of them just was not able to guard UCF on the perimeter, right? They used a lot of them on the court together in the first half. When Jordan Burks went off, He had like 18 points in the first half. He had like 14 points in a 6-minute stretch because they couldn't get out on the perimeter. And whenever you play two bigs who are non-athletic or don't have the lateral quickness, that's going to be a problem. I think Malik Brown mitigates that. I think we're going to see a lot of lineups with Boozer and Malik Brown as the 4 and the 5 in some capacity. I would expect that to be the starting front court for the Blue Devils. Again, this is just based off of one game, but the lack of foot speed between Ngongba and Boozer is an issue that I think is going to kind of make them you have one of them on the court at the same time. You're not going to have them be on the court together, at least for extended stretches. So that's a bit of a concern. But again, if Ngongba is going to be your guy off the bench, I think that bodes well. Caminha was awesome. I think he didn't shoot the ball well. He didn't have the impact you'd expect him to have. It was clear the first 5 minutes of the game. UCF was like, oh, there's the freshman white shooter. Let's go attack him defensively and make him defend. They didn't do that after the first 5 minutes. He played really well defensively. His ability to switch down and be a small ball 4. Now, again, it was UCF. But be a small ball 4 was impressive in a way that I did not expect it to be. He more than held his own defensively. He got to the foul line 12 times, drew a ton of fouls. Again, something that I wasn't necessarily expecting. He's now somebody I think is going to be a real glue piece for this team, which I did not expect going in. I wrote down, I think the over-under for Isaiah Evans passes in any single game is going to be 1.5. Anytime he touches it, it's going up. And you want it to. He's a phenomenal shooter, but it is clear he's got some a little bit of J.R. Smith in his game where it's I'm getting it and I'm letting it fly. One thing I brought up before the game too that I was really, really interested in seeing was the point guard spot and what they had with Caden Boozer, what they had with Caleb Foster. Caleb Foster, to me, is fine. He is not somebody who's going to elevate the ceiling of the team around him. He's not somebody who's going to, at this point in his career, be overly detrimental because he's just an experienced player. But this game, 7 boards, 4 assists, no turnovers, I think you take 3 points, 1 of 6 shooting. I think this is kind of what you can expect from him. And if that is your 7th man, 8th man, in the rotation, be a second or third guy off the bench, I think you take that with him as a steadying presence. Caden Boozer, I think, has to be the guy for this Duke team to reach the levels that Duke wants to be at. The offense, in terms of the scoring, wasn't necessarily there for Boozer in this game. And again, freshman point guard playing his first live action. His passes were so much crisper. You could tell he kind of saw things that other guys didn't see. It'll come for him. I left thinking that year 2, Caden Boozer, we'll be on this show talking about him as a ACC Player of the Year, All-American candidate going into his sophomore season.
I think eventually you get there. But what's worth mentioning is both with Foster and with Caden Boozer, what was very notable to me is they're both 6'5". They're big. Mm-hmm. And the guard size, the wing size of this Duke team is going to be their biggest strength. They're huge. They're physical. They're going to win the rebounding battle in nearly every game, but they're not going to win the athleticism battle against the top tier competition. And then so that really makes me wonder, right, is what's the ceiling of this team? This feels like a high floor team, even though they're so young, just because I don't know how high their highest gear is. Obviously, being physical, dominating the boards and getting, star play from Boozer is enough to beat UCF by 20 plus, and it might be enough to win the ACC given the middle and bottom of that league, but is it Final Four good? And I think that's really the question when you're talking about the expectations for Duke. Right. I'm not sure. I mean, obviously one game that didn't even count. I'm not certain if we'll get Final Four good Duke this year for a consistent period of time.
They are very similar to last year's team, again, in terms of the length and the makeup, but they are a worse version of last year's team. Again, last year's team was one of the most efficient in Ken Palm era ever, right? So taking a step back from an all-time great team, you can still be very, very good. But they are, I think, a worse version from last year's team. We joked about how last year we didn't hear that freshmen couldn't win because of how good Duke was with all their freshmen. I think you'll hear that about this Duke team. That the inexperience will show. We'll get back to Duke. Go ahead.
I was going to say, wanted to quickly say with UCF, Jordan Burks did not just suddenly become an amazing scorer. They're not a very good team. They very well might be the worst power conference team in the country. And if they're not the worst, they'll just be the worst non-Boston college team in the country.
Yeah, I think Burks and Riley Kugel will get you a hot 4-minute stretch here and there. Both of them did in this game. But I would not expect they would not have done what they did. They combined for 43 points. They would not have done that, I think, had Don Maysar Malik Brown played.
Nope. And then if they don't, then who scores for UCF? They'd have 50 points.
Correct.
Yeah.
We'll get to Duke at the end of this episode because they have a pretty big second exhibition game coming this weekend against Tennessee. But we're first going to start with Kansas and Louisville. They're going to face off on Friday at Louisville, 7:30. The Darren Peterson show for Kansas should be a lot of fun. First real look at that. Louisville, first look at this revamped roster that Pat Kelsey's got, all the guard transfers, first chance to really see them together. So what's sticking out in your mind as the main thing to watch, or the main couple things you're looking for in this game?
The biggest concern that I have with Louisville this season is their perimeter defense. They don't have a lot of defenders at the guard and wing spot, and now they are playing perhaps the most explosive guard in the country in Darren Peterson in this exhibition. I'd be fascinated to see who tries to guard him, who does Pat Kelsey put on Peterson, and what does that defense look like? Because Louisville might be the single best offense in the country. If they can play even average defense, they have a real chance of being one of the best teams in the country. And then for Kansas, I've been getting higher and higher on them all offseason. I think they have a chance to be brilliant if Darren Peterson is as good as many people hype him up to be. So can they do that? Who steps up alongside him? Who's the second option on the team? How does Flory Badunga do with no more Hunter Dickinson? I think there's a lot of questions, and this should be a great basketball game.
I'm glad you brought up Badunga because Louisville's front line has questions as well. There's talent, but can Sananda Frew kind of be enough of a presence inside to let Louisville's guards do what they need to do and take some of the pressure off of them, particularly on the glass and defensively? Badunga, at the very least, is going to test him on the glass and Frew's interior defense, right? Because Badunga wants to dunk everything and has the athleticism to go dunk everything. For Kansas as well, I think even if Darren Peterson has an off game, I think we know generally what to expect from him. I would expect a good performance given what we saw Dabonsa put up 30 in BYU in their exhibition opener, and then you saw Boozer put up 30 plus in Duke's opener as well. I think he wants to do the same. That race between those three this season is going to be a lot of fun to watch. But who steps up around him? And you brought up a good point here. Like, the team is based off of him being a star. I think he's going to be a star. Is there enough support around him, and what does that look like? Where does that come from? First chance to see that against a Louisville team we expect to be pretty good. Some good storylines here, for sure.
I would expect, in that Dabonsa BYU Nebraska game, there was 179 points in that one, 90-89. This will probably have over 170 as well.
I would expect this to look more like the Bama Florida State one, where they both hit like 104 or something like that.
That's lofty. That's lofty.
Yeah. It's exhibition season. We can exaggerate. But I do expect it to be up and down, very high scoring. Expect the same thing in Purdue, Kentucky as well. Don't know if I need a lot of introducing for this, given the fact that both are preseason top 10. They're playing in Lexington at 6 o'clock. It'll be broadcast on SEC Network. So we're going to get a chance at legitimate TV here for Purdue and Kentucky, and two teams that we may see in the Final Four this season. So what's the one thing or two things you're looking at in this one?
I don't really care about Purdue in this game because they bring back their three best players from last year. We know what they are. They have almost a replica roster from their starting lineup last year. They just had Oscar Clough, who is someone who is more of a known commodity, not someone with the super high upside, but he's going to grab you a board. He's going to finish inside. He's going to play, well-positioned defense.
Yes. The
question is with Kentucky. And most importantly for me, what does their front court look like? Jaden Quainton's recovering from that knee injury. We don't know when he's going to be back. Mo Diabate is probably going to play a lot of four coming over from Alabama. He was an elite rate stat guy, but we don't know what that will look like in an expanded role. Is Brandon Garrison the starter? What about freshman Malachi Moreno? I'm very curious to see the front court rotation, and what a better team to sort of get a look at what that rotation looks like when they're playing against Trey Kaufman, Ren, and Clough down low with Daniel Jacobson, the 7'3" redshirt freshman sophomore who got injured in the second game of the season as a freshman. What does Kentucky's front court look like? Because they have to be better defensively given how that season finished for the Wildcats last year.
And don't forget too, Jalen Lowe is out for Kentucky. He's their point guard. Seems like his recovery is going well. Mark Pope said he's recovering epically fast. So who knows what that means?
Who knows?
But they're going to have to play somebody else at point in this game. I don't expect it to be like we'll find something about Kentucky at the point guard spot because it's Lowe's position when he comes back. But I want to see how that works. I am curious about Purdue's front court. Not from a negative standpoint, not from a positive standpoint necessarily. We know this is a very talented team. But I believe the second piece I wrote for Basket Under Review, which if you can go back through the archives, you can go find it, was wondering how Matt Painter is going to attack this front court rotation. Simply for the reason that you have three guys, as you mentioned, with Clough, TKR, and Jacobson. Three high talented guys who can all make impact. But all three of them are relatively paint bound, or at least have been to this point in the career. I know there's been some stuff the offseason about Clough working on his 3-point shot, and they posted some clips of him knocking down some threes. Again, we'll see what happens when we get into games. But you have three paint-bound bigs. And again, with Clough and TKR, the amount of resources that you've given those two, we'll put it that way, instead of the full just you paid them. The amount of resources you have poured into them, both of them are going to play big minutes. So how does that work? The last time this was really a problem for Purdue, and the reason why I'm interested in this, was when you had Trevion Williams and Zach Edey. This was Zach Edey before the National Player of the Year campaigns, and Trevion Williams was coming off an all Big Ten season, and they were two of their three best players alongside Jaden Ivey. Painter decided he couldn't play both of them together, and so he staggered them. They both played 20 minutes. Purdue was still very good in the second weekend, did all that, but their ceiling was significantly lowered because you couldn't play two of your three best players on the court at the same time. I don't expect that to be the case here. I think, when you go all in with Clough and TKR, you kind of know what you're getting into. But I do want to see how he tries to work that, because it was something in the past he said couldn't. Now he's going to try it. And I think this could work because they're both very skilled, both good passers as well. Mm-hmm. I just want to see how it looks, given the fact he had punted on it just a couple of years ago.
Can I give you a quick guess?
Yes.
So that year, Williams and Edey, even though they didn't reach their ceiling, they were the number 2 offense in KenPom. The defense stunk. They were 93rd. The reason they didn't play together was the defense was bad because they couldn't move their feet. Trey Kaufman-Renn in his career has performed way better defensively in on-off stats as the 4-man. And when Daniel Jacobson got hurt and he had to basically play the 5 because they couldn't play Will Berg, the defense suffered severely. So because TKR is now at the 4, Painter has made the 2 big lineup work offensively. Defensively is the problem, and I think this is a better defensive allotment for TKR, and that's why this will work. There's your answer.
Is there the rim protection, though? Because that's the other side of this. That, Clough was a okay rim protector at the Summit League level. Being a rim protector that you need to rely on at the Big Ten level is a different story, right? I trust TKR to move his feet defensively and be able to defend on the perimeter a little bit, but still 2 bigs. You trust that there's at least going to be some rim protection. That's one of the questions here is there may not be.
There may not be rim protection, but there will be rim denial, and Matt Painter has been very good about that in his career. So I would expect not a lot of rim attempts against Purdue this season.
Yeah, we'll find out. I mean, Kentucky's a team that'll test that. Certainly, you got a lot of guys who are shooting. You're gonna have a wide open lane. If you want to know if they're able to move their feet laterally and how that works, Kentucky's a pretty good test for that, for sure. Over under how many 3-pointers are taken in this game?
Pardon?
Over under how many 3-pointers are taken in this game?
Oof. Purdue won't take too many. So I'm going to say Kentucky will be at 55%. So they take 35. Let's say 50 total threes.
Okay. I think I'm hitting the over.
Okay.
I think I'm hitting the over on the number of threes in this game. Again, should be up and down. Should be a lot of fun. Don't know if we're going to be as up and down in Villanova, Virginia, but it's going to be very different than what we've typically seen from the Virginia teams. Second go around for the Cavaliers under Ryan Odom had lost to Vanderbilt in their first game. I guess Virginia is only playing teams with the letter V at the beginning of their school this exhibition season. But first, we're look at Kevin Willard in charge of Villanova as well. A good fact-finding mission, I think, about both of these two teams, because we still don't know a lot about Virginia even after one game. What are some facts you're hoping to find?
Well, for one, Villanova just crushed VCU the other day. I'm curious, maybe Kevin Willard has figured out the secret sauce that I've been doubting all offseason, because I think the roster is bad. VCU's roster is solid. I have them almost ranked neck and neck, and Villanova did not make that game particularly close. In that Virginia-Vanderbilt game, we got no box score. So we don't actually really know rotations. We don't really know what Ryan Odom's thinking. So this should be really eye-opening. Was Villanova's VCU game for real? What does Virginia's team look like? This is one of those games that, stylistically, we kind of know what Willard's going to do and we know what Ryan Odom's going to do. I just want to know who's playing and who's playing well.
I did miss that Villanova VCU game. I apologize. I blocked that out of my memory. I do remember Caden Lewis throwing a full court underhand pass that ultimately went for a layup. Just absurd stuff. I think he's going to do some fun things. Kevin Willard's a good coach, man. Like, he'll have Villanova back, not to the Jay Wright level, but Kevin Willard is a good coach. Villanova's not going to be some pushover this season, even though the talent doesn't suggest they're going to be competing at the top of the Big East. They're going to be competitive, right? And I think that might serve as a good barometer for Virginia as well, kind of like Vanderbilt did, where, all right, where are we at? What do we have? What do we need to work on? Two teams that should finish in, say, like the above average in both of their conferences, maybe above the mid-tier point. But I think another game for at least Virginia against a team that should be on the same kind of level as you. And Villanova, I think, proved they're ahead of VCU, a team that's projected to be at or near the top of the A-10, right? So maybe we got to – if Villanova works Virginia in this game or wins handily, I think we may need to reevaluate how we think of the Wildcats.
Yeah, if Villanova comes in with the three-man bench unit of Christian, Jeffrey, Malachi Palmer, and Braden Pierce, like they did to VCU, then I might just have to blind trust Kevin Willard like that. I mean, listen, Willard got it done with no bench last year at Maryland, and this Villanova team, due to some injuries, is not deep. So that will be very interesting to see if they can come in and really challenge Virginia, who I consider to be, at least on paper, the much better team.
Yep. That game is Friday as well at 7:00 on ACC Extra. If you have that online, ESPN Plus is going to be where you can find North Carolina and BYU Friday night at 9. This may be the most intriguing game of the weekend, given all of the questions surrounding North Carolina over the offseason, given the fact that it's BYU and BYU is coming off of the exhibition loss to Nebraska. Wins and losses do not matter in exhibition season. We're going to continue to say that about every 5 minutes on this show. That being said, if BYU, with all the money they poured in this offseason and all the hype around them, goes 0-2 during exhibition season to Nebraska and Hubert Davis, are you ringing any alarm bells?
Well, don't forget, BYU did only play their starters half the game, and in some cases, well, fewer than half of the game in that Nebraska scrimmage. I wonder if they kind of go more full throttle here, especially maybe they've been a little bit of a fire after people were kind of dragging their defensive effort online. If anybody's reading the Twitter sphere, then perhaps they might want to give a little bit of an extra boost on that end. This game is going to be super fast. Both coaches want to run. A lot of it is going to happen in transition. North Carolina's backcourt, especially Seth Trimble, is going to want to get out and push. So we're going to learn a lot about which one of these defenses can step up. I don't think either of these defenses are great, but we'll see what the effort level is, and we'll see if BYU does, play Rob Wright and Keba Keita, who barely played in that first game, a heck of a lot more.
I think with this game being in Utah, in Salt Lake City, right? Because they're playing where the Jazz play, if I remember correctly. Like they've moved this to an NBA arena. I think there's going to be a little bit more motivation to win this game. Also, the fact he lost to Nebraska, which I think will lead to some more effort defensively. Also, most of the social media clips that were going on after that Nebraska game were not of Devonta scoring 30 points. It was of him not trying defensively at all. I think he wants to up that a little bit. I don't think he wants that floating around. I would expect more effort from him. From the North Carolina standpoint, I think we need to see the point guard situation. Right, this Kyan Evans really worked there. How much does Seth Trimble try there? And also the front court rotation. I've heard nothing but good things about Henry Vesar and how much he's taken his game to yet another level after a good year at Arizona last season. They have some really good pieces up front. I want to see how they use those. Who they use at the 3. There's some talk about Jaren Steven being in there, particularly with Bogovic not playing in this game. That may look interesting in the way some things do in exhibition, but if you're going to try it out, this is a great opportunity to try it out. And if it doesn't work, again, it doesn't really hurt you. What do you see from North Carolina perspective in this one that you're looking at?
Yeah, the 3 spot's big. What does Jaden Stevenson look like? Someone who I think was misused at Alabama. Obviously, if he's back at the 3, that's another misuse. But I think that he has the chance to be really, really good if he's used in a way that doesn't make him, stand in the corner and jack up 3-pointers, which is not his game. So seeing him in a different role will probably be something that would be a good thing to see.
Speaking of standing in the corner and shooting 3-pointers, Indiana's going to have a lot of guys doing that because that's what Indiana recruited to. This is a team full of shooters under Darian DeVries. Their first exhibition matchup, or at least first notable exhibition matchup against Baylor. This is Baylor's second. They had the first game against Grand Canyon, which they won, started exhibition season, started our show a couple weeks ago. Got a good soft spot for this Baylor team. What are you looking for in this one? Because this is a game with 2 teams. Indiana, we don't know what to expect from this roster. And Baylor is still a team who doesn't have anybody who played together last year. There's nobody who played for Baylor last year.
Yeah. These are 2 mid-major heavy transfer teams. They're not necessarily among the more athletic. So this is going to be a skill-based team matchup. Whichever of these 2 teams is more skilled probably come out with this win here, which will be very interesting to see. Indiana is obviously a brand new collection of guys, and they haven't played yet like Baylor has, where we were able to see a little bit of what makes sense when they played Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon is actually probably bigger and more athletic than Indiana is. Yeah. So for Baylor, maybe they're a lot more skilled than we were seeing, at least hearing on that audio/stat feed only game for Baylor. This will be cool to see if Baylor's backcourt is perhaps more efficient. They were relatively inefficient against Grand Canyon size. And then if it would not surprise me if Darren DeVries, knowing what I know about him, if he does not play anybody big minutes. Indiana has had so many different opportunities, whether it was their exhibition game against the non-D1 opponent they played earlier this month, or whether it was their international tour that they played in the offseason. They have a lot of chances to play some minutes. I think that he won't ride anybody big minutes. He'll try to keep a lot of things under wraps if possible.
Yeah, one thing that came out of that Grand Canyon game for Baylor was the guards produced. It was a guard-heavy team. The guards led the way. There were some efficiencies that they needed to improve upon and will throughout the course of the season, but it was a guard-heavy team. How far can that take Baylor? I don't know. I think we'll find out a little bit more about the answer to that question against Indiana, because Indiana is a team full of guards, a team full of perimeter players, right? And they are kind of the mid-major plus guys, which Baylor has as well. But if Baylor is going to overachieve, because I think we all are kind of expecting a step back from Baylor, at least a little bit this year. If they are going to overachieve, you perform well against a team like Indiana, where, again, guard-heavy, guard-oriented, you win those matchups on the perimeter. If you win those matchups on the perimeter, you beat Indiana. I think that's kind of where we're at with the Hoosiers this season, which brings me to the other point with Indiana. How do they rebound? How do they protect the rim? Any team that is going to be perimeter-oriented, play 5 out, space the court the way it looks like this team does, those are going to be your questions. And again, you don't have anybody really in the front court coming back who you can rely on. You don't have anybody who's played at this level on the interior, who you know what to expect from them. So our first look at that, too, for the Hoosiers.
Last year at West Virginia was Darren DeVries' first year ever as a head coach, not as a top 100 defensive rebounding team for KenPom. We'll see if that is just an issue that he's going to run into at the high major level, or if he will have that short out.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because it was also his first year in power conference level.
Yeah.
Things are a little bit. It's a different kind of game at that level. Be a lot of fun to see there. NC State and South Carolina meet in Greensboro, neutral site matchup there at 4:00 on Sunday, or 4:30 on Sunday. Excuse me. So you can get through the early red zone window and then flip over to the NC State South Carolina game. First chance to see the Wolfpack under Will Wade that's plenty of intrigue in this game. I'm a South Carolina alum. They should be the worst team in the SEC this season, or at least one of the bottom 2 or 3. I did have this told to me, though, by somebody I respect in the media space and in the recruiting space who got to go down there. He said the South Carolina team is not great compared to what he's seen from other teams in the SEC, but they are better than they were when the year they made the NCAA tournament. So that left me saying, I don't know what to expect from the Gamecocks. I think this team fits Lamont Paris's system maybe more than last year's team did. Maybe it's because they have Michi Johnson, and only good things happen to South Carolina when Michi Johnson is on a South Carolina roster and not an Ohio State roster. But a chance to kind of see what the Gamecocks have there too. So what stands out to you from this matchup that you're going to be tracking?
Yeah, I don't think South Carolina is going to finish last or second last in the SEC. I think that'll be LSU and Georgia. What I think is interesting is, and listen, I'm a lot higher on NC State than South Carolina. I think NC State is awesome, and for me, a surefire top 25 team. That said, I expect this game to be close. NC State, I don't think, at least yet, as they're figuring out this pretty intricate defensive scheme from Will Wade, will be able to absolutely blow a team out, especially like South Carolina, that in theory should have decent ball control and will obviously keep the game relatively slow. What I'm curious about to see is the defense for both sides. South Carolina, if they're going to have any chance without a ton of offensive firepower, are going to have to be like that team 2 years ago and play stout defense. And if they're able to do that in day one, that'll be a big impact for them.
South Carolina has built their team around 3-point shooting. They're going to be a team that lives by the 3 and dies by the 3. So I don't know if there's going to be a ton you can totally take away from this. It's exhibition season. We see teams shoot low percentages all the time because it's the first time they're getting live action, and a lot of times the legs for these shooters haven't adjusted quite yet. It's part of the reason you play these games. From an NC State standpoint, there are 2 guys I'm looking at seeing in particular. I want to see how Terrence Arsenault performs, and I want to see how Matt Abel performs. Matt Abel, they've raved about him all summer coming in as a freshman, and he's gotten some buzz as like one of those off-the-radar guys who could step up and be a one-and-done caliber player. First chance to see him in live action, we'll see kind of the impact I think he's able to have. And Arsenault is somebody who, for a couple of years, we talked about him potentially breaking out at Houston, but was just stuck behind a log jam of guards and then had the Achilles injury and was stuck behind another log jam of guards. The opportunity wasn't there. He's a very good player. At worst case, he's going to be a plus defender, one of the best defenders in the ACC. If he can have that breakout now in a starting role, almost a starting role, Darion Williams is the star ACC preseason player of the year, but in more of the starting role, more of a featured role, I think NC State may have something that could put them out of that like second, third tier in the ACC up to the top. It'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah, I'm always going to bet on someone who played for Kelvin Sampson, and that's Terrence Arsenault's resume speaks for itself in that regard.
And Kelvin Sampson has never had a bad word to say about Terrence Arsenault too, which is another great sign. Duke, Tennessee, are going to close the weekend Sunday night at 7. We just talked about the Blue Devils at the Open. Another chance for them against a much better team, I would say, than UCF. I'm going to go out on a limb there. So from a Tennessee perspective, what are you hoping to see from them against a very talented Duke team?
All I'm curious about with Tennessee is the 2 guard and the 4 spot, because I have no questions, even though there's a little bit of, varying opinion on Nate Ament. He's going to be one of the best freshmen in college basketball, not as good as a top 3, but probably top 10. Jacoby Gillespie is one of the top 10 guards in the sport, in my opinion, and Felix Okpara is one of the best big men defenders. And Rick Barnes knows how to coach defenders at the 5. That's not a problem. Can Cade Phillips play the full-time 4? I've heard a lot of good things about him this offseason, and he should be able to take a step forward. And then who on earth plays the 2 spot? Who plays the off-ball guard next to Jacoby Gillespie? Because I don't know if Tennessee knows that answer. And perhaps some live action against a really good, big Duke team, as we mentioned off the top, will help them figure that out. But for Tennessee, that's the key to the season. If by March they have a for sure plug-in starter at the 2 spot that is hitting threes and playing defense, this team has a sky-high upside. If they don't, they have a pretty low floor. So this is step 1 into figuring that out.
I think they'd like for it to be Amari Abram, given just his experience and some of the shooting chops there. But yeah, That's a guy making the jump from Louisiana Tech. Going to be interesting to see. I want to see with Tennessee. I think this is an interesting piece, just a different wrinkle under Rick Barnes because they're going to play awesome defense, right? Nate Ament, I think, is going to be very good. There's a chance he's great. At the very least, he's going to be a good player, right? But we also know Jacoby Gillespie is awesome. When was the last time a Rick Barnes team was led offensively by their point guard? I know Kai Ziegler had so many good like defensive things about his game and was the heart and soul of that team last year. When was the last time like the leading scorer for a Rick Barnes team was the point guard?
Kennedy Chandler. That was a good team. They were 7th in KenPom. 9th in KenPom. They made the round of 32. So maybe not the highest ceiling, but they were a very good basketball team and the number 3 defense in the country.
I think the time before that too was the TJ Ford team at Texas. I say that to say this is a bit of a unique situation for like a Barnes team where your point guard is also your primary scorer. Right. Yeah. Now, maybe it becomes Nate Ament, and I think if Nate Ament is their primary scorer, that bodes really well for Tennessee. It's just going to be a different style Tennessee team, I think, than what we've seen. Their identity is still going to be defense. They're still defense first, but the way they attack offensively might be a little bit different. And I want to see how that looks because anytime you switch things up, it could be a little clunky. I trust Gillespie to be an efficient scorer, but how that looks against a Duke team that, as we said before, really long, going to play a very high level of defense at the very least, should be interesting to see there. Who wins this game? We're going to start with this one, and we'll work backwards as we do our picks here at the end of the show. Duke or Tennessee? Who are you taking?
I'm going to go with Duke. Yeah, Duke.
Glad we're disagreeing off the bat. I'm going to go Tennessee. Okay. I think the injuries for Duke may make an impact here. If they're fully healthy, it might be a different story, but we're going to go Tennessee. NC State or South Carolina?
NC State.
I agree. Baylor or Indiana?
Indiana.
I'm going to go Indiana as well. I think the shooting makes a big difference there. Let's see if we can get different on UNC and BYU.
I'm going to say BYU.
You're going to say BYU? I'm going to go UNC. I think this UNC team has a chance to be really, really good this year. Really good this year. Villanova or Virginia?
Virginia.
Yeah, I'm going to go Virginia too. I think it would be interesting if Villanova won, but I'm going to go Virginia. Purdue or Kentucky?
Definitely Purdue. Purdue was winning this basketball game.
Yeah. I want to go Kentucky, but Jalen Lowe being hurt, I think Purdue is going to win too. And then Kansas or Louisville?
Oof. I think Louisville is a better team. I think Kansas wins this game.
I'm going to go Louisville. I think Kansas will get there and be awesome. I just think, again, when you're a freshman is your best player, you got a lot of guys stepping into roles they haven't had before. I think it's a bit of a stretch there to see kind of how that goes. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
We'll be back on Monday breaking down the best weekend of exhibition season, figuring out who won and who lost, talk about what matters, because we're getting closer and closer to the real thing. We are like a week and a half from the start.
11 days, 10 days.
Yeah, I don't know the official day count, but a week and a half. We'll go there. Enjoy some hoops this weekend. Enjoy everything else, but enjoy the best weekend of exhibition hoops. Get you ready for the real thing. We'll be back on Monday to break it all down.